in the heart of a sprawling concrete metropolis, where the hum of traffic never ceased and skyscrapers pierced the clouds, lived a young boy named Leo. His world was one of flashing screens, crowded streets, and the constant echo of a city that never slept. But amidst this urban chaos, a quiet longing grew within him, a yearning for the whisper of leaves, the scent of damp earth, and the silence of a world untouched by human hands. He felt a profound disconnect, a sense that a vital part of himself was missing, lost somewhere in the wilderness he'd only ever seen in pictures. One sweltering summer morning, fueled by a library book filled with tales of untamed lands and a spirit of adventure he didn't know he possessed, Leo made a decision. He packed a small bag with a water bottle, a compass he'd gotten for his birthday, and a half-eaten chocolate bar, leaving a note on his pillow that simply said, "Gone to find the green." He slipped out of his apartment and boarded a series of buses and trains, each one taking him further from the familiar grey and closer to the rumoured expanse of a great, ancient jungle. Hours later, the last bus sputtered to a halt at a dusty outpost on the edge of the wilderness. Leo stepped off, and the world transformed. The city's roar was replaced by a symphony of buzzing insects, distant bird calls, and the rustle of unseen creatures. The air was thick and humid, heavy with the fragrance of blossoms and decay. Towering trees formed a dense canopy overhead, their leaves filtering the sunlight into emerald green shafts that danced on the forest floor. He was here. He was truly here. With a deep breath that felt like the first real one he'd ever taken, Leo plunged into the jungle. The initial thrill was exhilarating. He marveled at butterflies with wings like stained glass, followed the winding path of a column of leafcutter ants, and felt the spongy moss under his fingertips. But as the sun began to dip lower, casting long menacing shadows, the jungle's wonder began to mingle with a creeping sense of fear. Every snap of a twig sounded like a predator's footstep. The hoot of an owl felt like a warning. The mystery of the forest, once enchanting, now seemed ominous and vast. Lost and utterly alone, with his small supply of water nearly gone, Leo stumbled into a clearing. And that's when he saw it. In the center of the clearing, bathed in the fading light, sat a magnificent lion. Its mane was a cascade of gold and brown. Its muscles rippled with power, and its amber eyes held a look of profound loneliness and ancient wisdom. It was the most terrifying and beautiful thing Leo had ever seen. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to hide, to disappear back into the tangled undergrowth. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drum in the sudden silence. The lion hadn't moved, but its gaze was fixed on him. A silent, powerful challenge. Leo thought of the city, of his small room, of the life he'd left behind. Then he thought of the stories he'd read, stories of courage and kindness. He knew that running would be the end. Instead of fleeing, Leo did something unexpected. He slowly, deliberately, sat down on the ground, mirroring the lion's posture. He didn't try to hide his fear, but he didn't let it control him either. From his bag, he took out the last piece of his chocolate bar, a small, slightly melted square. It was the only food he had left. With a trembling hand, he held it out, not as a challenge, but as a simple, honest offering. An offering of peace. The lion watched him, its head tilted. It didn't roar. It didn't charge. It simply observed the small, strange creature before it. A long moment stretched between them, thick with unspoken questions. Then, with a grace that defied its immense size, the lion rose. It padded slowly towards Leo, its paws making no sound on the soft earth. It stopped just a few feet away, sniffed the air, and then lowered its great head to gently nudge Leo's outstretched hand. Ignoring the chocolate completely, it was a gesture of acceptance, a recognition of courage over fear. In that moment, Leo knew he was safe. This was the beginning of an extraordinary friendship. Leo stayed in the jungle, and the lion, whom he named Aslan, after the hero from his favorite book, became his guide and protector. As the days turned into weeks, Leo started to notice something incredible. He began to understand the lion. It wasn't about words, not in the human sense. It was a language of the heart, of instinct. He learned that a low, guttural growl wasn't always a threat. Sometimes it was a sound of contentment, like a cat's purr, amplified 1,000 times. He learned that a flick of the tail could mean annoyance, curiosity, or an invitation to play. The twitch of an ear could signal a distant sound, a warning of a coming storm, or the approach of another animal. The lion's soft nudges were his way of showing affection, and a direct, unblinking stare was a sign of deep, unwavering trust. Leo realized that all animals spoke this language. He watched monkeys communicate with a complex series of calls and gestures, warning each other of danger or celebrating a find of ripe fruit. He saw birds perform intricate dances to attract a mate. He learned that the entire jungle was a living, breathing conversation, a network of communication that had existed for millennia, long before human words ever came to be. Together, Leo and his majestic friend explored every corner of their green kingdom. Aslan showed Leo hidden waterfalls that cascaded into crystal-clear pools, ancient trees whose roots were as thick as a man's torso, and fields of flowers that glowed with an ethereal light under the moon. Leo, in turn, shared his world with the lion. He hummed the tunes of city songs, described the towering buildings as man-made mountains, and told stories of the metal beasts that roam the paved rivers. One day, the distant sound of engines and the sharp crack of falling trees broke the jungle's peace. Loggers had come, their machines tearing through the forest's edge, leaving a scar of destruction in their wake. Fear rippled through the animal community. Panic and confusion spread. Leo felt a surge of anger and a deep sense of responsibility. This was his home now, and these were his friends. He and Aslan stood on a ridge, overlooking the devastation. The lion let out a roar, not of anger, but of sorrow and defiance. It was a sound that echoed through the valleys, a call to arms that every creature understood. Leo knew what he had to do. He wasn't a warrior, but he was clever. Using his knowledge of the jungle, learned from Aslan, he began to work. He led the loggers on false trails into impenetrable thickets. He and the monkeys created diversions, dropping fruit on their equipment and chattering loudly to disrupt their work. He used his compass and knowledge of terrain to make the forest seem impossibly confusing and hostile. Aslan, for his part, became a ghostly protector. He never harmed anyone, but his presence was a powerful deterrent. A glimpse of his massive form at the edge of the tree line, a low growl echoing in the night. It was enough to sow unease and fear among the intruders. The men spoke of a spirit of the jungle, a guardian that watched their every move. Slowly their campaign worked. The loggers, frustrated, spooked, and finding the work unprofitable in the face of such strange resistance, packed up and left. The jungle was safe. A quiet celebration rippled through the forest. Aslan rested his heavy head on Leo's small shoulder, a gesture of profound gratitude and friendship. Leo had not only found his connection to nature, he had become its champion. He had arrived in the jungle as a boy seeking adventure, but he had discovered something far greater. He learned that true bravery wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to act with kindness and courage in spite of it. He learned that friendship isn't bound by species or language. but is a connection of souls, and he learned that the silent, powerful language of nature speaks volumes to those who are willing to open their hearts and listen. In the heart of the wild, surrounded by the world he was born to know, the boy from the city had finally truly found his home. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story of courage and friendship, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join us on our next adventure. See you next time.